Yeah, happy to hear you again, to speak with you again.
It's been a lot. It's been a minute since we spoke, man. Good to catch up, and thank you, guys, for joining the stage. Chris, good evening. Welcome to the stage, man. Thanks for grabbing that co-host spot. It gives me a chance to get everything situated in the back end. How are you today, bro?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, mate. Doing very well. And I'm actually really looking forward to this space. Again, I don't really want it to be the sort of us v them type scenario because I think it's much more like better if we sort of find some common ground, because I think a lot of us in the crypto space, especially if you're in Bitcoin or Kaspa or both, you do share like a common ground. Um, Otherwise, like why else would you be in it? So I think coming to a common ground is always a good thing, and then we can just sort of dive a little bit deeper into the tech and and go from there. But I'm certainly looking forward to it. I can see Pim is already up on stage. Really appreciate you coming along. Thanks a lot. And again, it's a massive thank you to you actually, because it takes a lot for, obviously we're Caspians, and it takes a lot for a Bitcoiner to come and speak as well. So certainly interested in hearing what you've got to say. Is Sid coming along as well, Pimmer?
He's on the way. I mean, you're supposed to start 12:30, so he should be here in a minute or so.
Awesome, that's fine. Thanks for that. We'll just let the room warm up a little bit more because, Pimmer, I know you're on a bit of a time crunch. We've got about half hour with you, and then we'll get going. But I'll just let the room warm up just a little bit more because it's 8 o'clock now. So then we'll go from there. But again, massive thank you to everyone coming as well, being up on stage. It's always good. I would actually like to see some more Bitcoiners, because if you've got any questions or anything like that, please just put it in the chat. But if you also wanted to come up on the stage, that would be great as well. Like I said, I want it to be quite an even split, and I don't want it to be a shouting match, like or like calling each other names. I'd much rather have something constructive come out of this. I think that's the best way forward. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. Lavendi will source them out, and we can ask away. Sid, how are you doing? I can see you've just joined the chat. Nice to meet
Hey
you.
guys, good. It's good to be part of the Casper community again. It's been a while since I've been back, but it's good to see everyone here. It seems like it's going to be a good space. So thanks for having me here, Chris. Appreciate Nick. I think was the one that just tagged me in one of your tweets. That was like, hey, I should hop on, and super happy to hop onto this blockchain banner and talk about what's going on lately.
Really appreciate it, man. And I don't know, Lavendi, have you got Sid's? He done a really good post actually a while ago about DAGs. I think it was
Oh
inspired.
yeah, this was in January of 2023. That's
That's
right.
right, yeah. And actually, that's what sort of drew. I think it was what drew Nick's attention to you anyway. But it was a really good write up, actually, really fantastic. I was going to say as well, because I think at one point you was well, I don't know whether it was a partnership or what it was, but some degree involved with Tim Draper. Do you know if he
Yeah,
has any idea about Casper?
definitely not. No, no, I don't think so. I tried to put this in front of him and stuff several times, but yeah, I don't think that Tim really does have Caspa on his radar. Though I'm sure he's seen things parading around, of course. But yeah, no,
Actually,
I worked with Tim for
I
I
pitched
guess a
him
little while.
on a mining company. I pitched him on a mining company, and his for Caspa, and his whole investment team heard it out. So I think he may know about it.
When was
My two
this?
cents there. This was middle of last year when Caspa mining was super hot. It will
Oh
be
yeah,
super
that's when
hot
the fund
again.
got merged in by that time. Yeah. I'm sure then he probably does know about it.
And the intern loved it. The intern was all about Caspa, so maybe someone higher up blocked it.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's I mean, when I was in Nashville, there was Giovanni, the guy with his PTC Power Law, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was talking everything about how you guys are basically as close to the hash rate of Bitcoin as can be. and basically it follows a power law, right? The Bitcoin price. He was like, you know, it's like there's the Bollinger Bands and has an R squared of 95%. I was like, holy shit, 95% R squared. You don't see that stuff in nature, you know, and sometimes. So it's really, impressive how he's kind of charted out what he thinks is the future of BTC. And he basically said that BTC was undervalued, and that's in, let's say, September of 24. He said the top is going to be in November of 25. So this year, we're going to see our top at, I think he said 190K, maybe 200K, 210. So that's always very exciting. But anyways, I'll stop yapping and let you guys sort of, I guess, introduce the space. Would love to sort of be part of this debate and see what we could do here.
Awesome, really appreciate that, man, and I'm sure we can touch on it a bit more as we go on. But yeah, if we can just sort of just have a quick intro to everyone, who we are, and then we can go from there. And like I said, maybe try to find some common ground first, and then go from there. So I'll just work my way round. Who's on the stage? Ashton, how are you doing? And if you could just say hello and who you are.
Sorry about that.
Can anyone? Oh, sorry. Yeah, good.
Had to swap the microphone, but I'm good. Yeah, happy to be here. This is an exciting space, and it's I've been looking forward to it all weekend. Actually, I mentioned it to a couple family members at Easter dinner, so I hope they're here as well. But I'm Ashton. I've been involved in crypto since 2014 passively. I got pretty serious in 2017. I consider myself a Kaspa and Bitcoin maxi. I know maxi kind of precludes that opportunity of having both, but those are the two that I care about and spend a lot of time researching and paying attention to. And most recently, I'm from the creator team of Nacho the Cat, which is the largest token on Kaspa's KRC20. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, thanks, Ashton. And then I've got Shai next. Hi, Shai.
Hey, hello everybody. How are you?
Really good, thanks, man. And if you could just give a quick explanation of who you are, and then we'll move over to the next person.
Okay, so I'm unemployed. No, I'm kidding. I've been involved in Kaspa since before it launched. I did research, I did some design and architecture, and since it launched, I've mostly been doing. I like the term scientific evangelism. I've been trying to spread the word and help people realize the scientific significance and the technological significance of what's going on. And I'm also one of the creators of Nacho the Cat, but I don't mean the coin, I mean the actual cat. And that's about it.
Oh, love it. Thanks, Shai. Brilliant opening. And Pima, you're next on the list.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm head of ecosystem at Bima. So I think my full name is Piyush Maheshwari. I just cut it short to Bima, just because I coined Bima as Bitcoin Maxi and cut it short. I mean, opposite happened, but yeah. So that's how I named myself as well, in short. So that's about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Pima. And Christian?
Yes, I hope everyone's doing well. I'm an entrepreneur investor, been in the crypto space since 2017, and was a big crypto miner once upon a time before the big guys got into the game. But I own 4 petahash of miners, and I've been heavily invested in Kaspa since mid to late 2022.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. And then Wolf?
Well, I don't really know what to say given the audience, but I'm Wolf. I own Wolfpack NFT. I own Wolfie Coin, and I built my bar with profits from Bitcoin and Ethereum. And now I'm building my coin and my NFT with Kaspa. So I'm basically everybody's friend on here. So if people are struggling and they really want to get angry with each other, I'm the middleman.
Perfect. And at your bar, you accept both Bitcoin and Kaspa as payment as well, which is awesome.
I do, and friendship. So
yeah, I can't pay for a beer of friendship. I've tried. But Kaspador, you're next.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me.
I don't think Wolf, sorry, will have a debate, fight here, right? It's going to be a debate useful for everyone. So, I'm Kaspador. I am a Kaspa, as my name is saying, Maxi for the last 2.5 years since I've discovered Kaspa. I've been a community member, a very active one, and I've dedicated my, I would say, almost full time to everything that Kaspa is. Build some small tools, nothing fancy, but trying to help out the community and spread the word of Kaspa. Thank you again for having me.
Cheers, Kaspador. And then we've got Sid.
Hey guys, I'm Sid. I'm the founder of Bima. We're a way for you to borrow against your Bitcoin and mint stables very cheaply. And prior life, of course, I worked for Tim. Wrote a little bit of a sort of thread on Kaspa, and I thought that the block DAG sort of system was so unique, especially with the hash rate. I actually was very well connected. I wouldn't say well connected, but I learned about this because of Fish Tuna. I don't know if that's his name, but I forget his name. Eyal, right? He is on Twitter. He was a very big proponent of Caspa, and I learned so much about this. I was like, this is really really cool, and I thought it was a really interesting sort of concept, and definitely one of the things that's there that I always wanted to envision with Caspa is more programmability and utility and more programmable landscapes. You should be able to use Caspa for different DeFi operands, and I think that's something that we're already doing and trying to figure out with Bitcoin. And pretty soon you're going to see that with Caspa. So thanks for having me here.
Appreciate that, man. And yeah, Eyal's fantastic. I've learned a hell of a lot of him from him as well as I have from Shai. So Dennis, you're next.
Hi, Dennis. I used to work in the Labs, and now I'm co-founder of Igra project, a layer 2 solution on Kaspa.
Thanks, Dennis. And last but not least, we've got Mike Zach.
Hello. So good to be here. I'm Mike. I in crypto since like 2013 or so, back in the original Silk Road. Then I was the first employee that is not a founder in Igra Labs, and I led the development of Kaspa all the way till launch, excluding the launch. I quit everything back when Kaspa launched and just went to study music for a couple of years. But then Dennis called me back to the flag. And now I work part-time in Igra as a developer, and we develop this layer 2 for EVM compatible smart contracts above Kaspa.
Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in. But that's awesome. Thanks for that, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't choose Thug Life. Thug Life chose me.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, I know obviously Pima, you guys are quite short on time, so I do want to get into this fairly quickly because I'd love to get as many answers and questions sorted as possible. And again, just a reminder to everybody, everyone in the space, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and we can go from there. Lavendi, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to say we've got one more panelist up on here. Is Landy, a very well-known person in the space and very well-versed in Bitcoin. Welcome to the stage, Landy. Would you like to give us a little introduction for those that don't know you?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm Landy. I am a trader, an analyst. So I've been trading for, well, I've been saying 20 years for the past 5 years. So I guess it's 25 years. But traditional markets, and then crossed over to crypto, specifically Bitcoin in 2011. So I've been around for a little bit, kind of bouncing around, and having a lot of fun trading. And today has been an interesting day considering the market was green for Bitcoin and red for traditional equities markets. So we're in a difficult spot for people to gauge kind of what's going on. So I've been kind of making the rounds today. happy to be up here with you.
Great to have you here, and thanks for joining us. So to get into it, Sid and Pima and Landy, actually, seeing as you're obviously on the Bitcoin side of things, how did you actually find Bitcoin, and what attracted you to it? We'll start with Sid, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. I was attracted to Bitcoin because of the bull run. So 2018-19, it was like same year as prime Lionel Messi, and before he got the Liverpool, bottling. I remember it was like it was the same campaign. I think it was like scored his two-leg I guess hat trick against Tottenham. And I remember I was in class one day and someone was telling me about, oh, check out this new thing that's just gone up, it's going to the moon, the price has gone super high, it's Bitcoin. And my peers wanted to buy it, but I wanted to build it because I thought, why are people buying this? And I thought the technology was really interesting. And it just made sense, right? You have fixed supply economics. You have a mining system that is entirely dependent on hash power. I thought the idea made so much sense. So of course I dove in, and I never really peeked my head out ever since. So you learn a lot by working with people who, of course, have been more orange pilled. So, I've worked for Tim, and Tim is one of the most orange-pilled people that I know. And, all his reasons you could look up on podcasts and stuff. He has very good reasons as why. And I say this story and anecdote a lot, but we knew a family office in Argentina that was a millionaire 3 times over, but they lost their millionaire status each time because of inflation. It was real for them, especially in Argentina. So they really wanted Bitcoin as a coup de grace for them to escape a lot of these different inflationary mechanisms, but they were worried about the downside risk. And it was that kind of balance of making sure that you enable long-term upside for Bitcoin, but short-term liquidity and stable assets today that led to the birth of Bima, which is a way for you to mint stables and use it for different types of operations. But I mean, also think of it in a little bit more of a generalistic component. There's a person that bought pizza for 10,000 Bitcoin over a decade ago, and he lost out on $1 billion because of it. That's the reason there's such a huge and stark difference for Bitcoiners. It's one word, it's custody, and it's something that we're actively working to change. And I think that's the only one blocker for larger use case of Bitcoin and DeFi. But other than that, I think you're going to see a huge volume and an in-swing of capital from an institutional standpoint, as you're seeing. But I love Bitcoin because, someone said I didn't choose the thug life. The thug life chose me. I didn't choose Bitcoin. Bitcoin life, the orange life chose me. So yeah, I mean, that's what got me in, and I've really never peeked my head out ever since.
Love it.
May I ask? I have a question. What does orange pill mean? I never heard this. Like, I guess
Orange
it's
pill.
related to Bitcoin, but it's new for me.
Oh, well, congratulations. I'm about to orange pill you right now. So orange pilling is the act of, I feel like I'm like Webster's dictionary, but, Bitcoin is associated with the color orange, and it's a synonym with an expression for Bitcoin maximalism, or just being a very big fan of Bitcoin, right? That I love the adoption behind Bitcoin. I'm bullish on Bitcoin. So orange pilling basically is getting newbies to, I mean, people like, it's like the Matrix, right? It was red pill or the blue pill. So the orange pill is a pill you take to accept that Bitcoin really is the ultimate asset. That's what orange pilling is.
This is awesome. I love it.
It's like
This is great.
turquoise feeling, but with Bitcoin instead of Kaspa.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I have never actually, forgive me. It's been a while since I've come back to the Kaspa community, but what are I don't know too much about the lingo, but yeah, I'm sure that Kaspa or block dag pill, that sounds pretty cool. Can definitely start permeating throughout, different sort of communities and stuff.
I'll call it Kaspil.
That sounds nice.
I like turquoise feeling.
That's it. Oh, fantastic. So
The teal peel.
The
the
chill
what
pill. Nice.
So Sid, it's actually quite interesting. I will get to Pima in a minute, but it's quite interesting what you were saying there about obviously because you worked with Tim Draper a lot, and you've worked with a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, and for good reason as well, like being a Bitcoin maximalist is a good reason, because that's where a lot of us came from. We like Bitcoin because of the proof of work structure and what it can do for us as individuals or even as industry. But do you find that because once you're so tunnel vision, or I don't want to use that word tunnel vision, but you're so focused on Bitcoin that a lot of people will just brush off any new technology like Kaspa, for example?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Bitcoiners are the worst people to work with. And I hate saying that, but they're one of the most difficult people to convince. It's so hard for them to even convince them to make a transaction with it. Because in their mind, a lot of us are much closer to that pizza that people spend 10,000 Bitcoin on rather than the next Bitcoin, right? They're not thinking of us as how do I earn yield. They're thinking of us as how do I lose my money on something stupid. So absolutely. And they dismiss Caspa for a number of reasons. I've always thought the block DAG approach has been something like I first heard about block DAGs with the IOTA protocol, right? Much more faster, lower fees. But then you apply that to Bitcoin's hash rate, and I thought it really made something that just made economical sense in this is that you wanted something to scale with speed, but also have the same preserved decentralization and scalability that was there with something like a Bitcoin. So I think absolutely Bitcoiners are it's a mentality thing. You know, everything else is beautiful about it, but it is absolutely the mentality. And I'm sure you'll even see the same thing once Caspa reaches the levels of Bitcoin. You're going to see the people are going to be a little bit more adamant and picky about where they put their money, right? And where they put their Caspa or where they put their Bitcoin. So the risk that people take with Bitcoin is much more pronounced for them. Therefore, they don't want to basically ever think about anything related to like a Caspa. But I think that'll change because at some point you're going to understand that when people are coming down this road of wanting to actually use your Bitcoin to earn yield on it, there's not many other opportunities, you know. In fact, it's quite little, and I think that's one of the biggest things that's there is Bitcoin maxis are it's a mentality game more than a tech game, and I think that's something that you have to find a way to, you know, you can only, you know, keep the cattle at the herd, but you have to build a fence around them. So I think that's really the mentality that at least we have, that Piyush and I have for Bima.
Uh, can I interject?
Go ahead.
Uh, I think uh, I think the Bitcoin mentality is perfectly natural. I mean,
Oh yeah.
these guys have been very, very jaded. They are very jaded because for 1,000 times, all sorts of projects promise them the moon. And they are not only jaded because of all the empty promises, they're also resentful because this kind of conduct made a mess of the entire crypto industry and ruined its reputation. So when you come out and promise the moon again and say we did this and we did that, we solved the trilemma and we invented teleportation and time travel, they're going to be suspicious of you because they see you as part of a phenomenon that we all agree is a negative trend in general. So I don't think it's their responsibility to give us a chance among the 10,000 coins that make similar premises. I
100%.
think it's our responsibility to stand out. So
Exactly. Yeah,
I
that's what I was
I
going to get
don't
at.
think.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. So I just want to say that I don't think we should blame the Bitcoin maxis. We should ask ourselves, how can we stand out and make ourselves undeniable? That's all I wanted to say.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah. As much as it's easy to blame Bitcoin maxis for everything good or bad in the world, I absolutely think that, like I said, you have to build the fence around them, right? This is not something, it is an, you are even more correct in the fact that this is 100% natural. It is. You know, I said the same thing as, you know, you're going to see this when Caspital reaches the same levels. You're going to be more picky and choosy with your money. You're going to be a little bit more stingy. You're going to be a little bit more risk averse to the actual opportunities that you see out there, right? Ethereum is a much more risk landscape, and you see that with the way that people are ready to give up custody for ETH and others different tertiary assets to do operations like lending, borrowing, staking, any of these things. That's not the same for these assets that are much more highly priced, and much more sort of, I would say, robust and trusted. So you're on the nose right there.
Brilliant. I can see Landy's got his hand up. Go ahead, Landy.
All right. So look, I think that the Bitcoin maxi culture has been on its way out for a very long time. Look, a lot of Bitcoin facilities run Kaspa miners. We're running a lot of KS5s, KS5 Pros. We're literally housing those miners next to Bitcoin miners. So I think that while the resistance might come from the holder side of things in terms of network support side of things, Kaspa, the early days of Kaspa mining were propped up by a lot of Bitcoin miners themselves. So whether you're looking at Foundry or whether you're looking at ant mining pools, we're pushing a lot of hash rate through there. So I'm familiar with K heavy hash and DAGs and all that stuff as well. So it's a weird spot because we also have this infighting within the Bitcoin community that's been happening since 23, since the Ordinals protocol launched, about what changes need to be implemented on layer 1, and is it even worth making those changes with the 10-minute block times when you can just move it to an L2 or Bitcoin adjacent chain. And then you have in terms of ethos, you actually do have a lot of similarities between Bitcoiners and people who are very deep into Kaspa. I'm personally a fan of Kaspa. I used to chart it quite regularly when it was in demand. I don't get a lot of requests for it anymore. But kind of calling out the 20 cent region as like, hey, this is where we're headed, and this is maybe where we stop and consolidate for a while. And we've seen that. I'm very much I'm a proof of work guy. So like when Ethereum, I mined Ethereum as well when it was proof of work, although it did get a little bit more difficult over time. It was not. It wasn't because I thought that Ethereum was going to win the race, right? Bitcoin has won the race in the regards of, hey, everything that launched at one point was, this is going to be the next Bitcoin, right? And there is no, this is going to be the next Bitcoin anymore. That conversation's kind of gone by the wayside, especially in the last 4 years, especially with Ethereum moving to proof of stake. So, different chains for different things and different purposes is kind of where things are going to be headed in the future, because every chain tries to do everything that every other chain tries to do, except faster and more secure or more scalable or whatever that might be. But at some point, it's going to be all about specialization of the chain. What does your chain do best? And whatever it does best is what's going to win out, a decade, 2 decades from now, right? In terms of marketplace adoption, use case, and kind of where things are headed right now. And I think getting Bitcoiners on Team Kaspa isn't that difficult. It's going to probably require some bridging of liquidity moving forward through really attractive DApps, right? And that's where a lot of things are headed. So I'm interested personally in what's being built on Kaspa. And the mining rewards and the structure really did benefit the early miners, and will continue to benefit those who have been in early. And I think that support will continue to grow, but it's all about where does the ecosystem go next? What's going to be the focus? I think that unlocking some of Bitcoin's liquidity might be on the horizon as well. Maybe somebody here can give me information on that.
What specifically are you looking for to bridge? Just like a wrapped Bitcoin on Kaspa?
Well, I mean that that's basically what everybody's doing, right? To try and free up that liquidity. Because a lot of Bitcoiners right now, they're reluctant to sell their Bitcoin, especially if they've been in for a while. And so how do you get them, and then taking profit isn't that attractive if you are taking profit on it. You have to pay taxes on it, right? Especially in the current environment, unless that changes. So what's the other way? You loan against it, right?
Like a margin loan and buy Kaspa. I mean, they could do that. They could do that without Kaspa having smart contracts
Well, sure,
and
but
just take out margin. And...
absolutely. But what is for the vast majority, if I'm a Bitcoiner and I'm going to go into a wrap product, what is it? Is it centralized, decentralized, right? There's only one decentralized peg out there, and that's SBTC at the moment. Now there's other ways of most don't want to give up their initial custody, and if they're going to a platform or if they want to take out a loan against it, then they want to evaluate the DApp security and so on and so forth. So it's very methodical, and that's where a lot of resistance comes in from Bitcoiners, because most Bitcoiners don't view any other network as secure versus Bitcoin itself, right? So it tends to prevent that movement to en masse to other chains to unlock that liquidity. So it's really all it comes down to the network security itself, which Kaspa is very secure, the DApp ecosystem, and then the audits of those DApps. And then what does the backing look like? Is it on chain? Is it transparent? Like all of those things. And I think Kaspa has a really good advantage in this regard, just based on the network itself, right? From the core of how it was built to help unlock that, not just for Kaspa, but for also for Bitcoin itself, because there are already a lot of Bitcoiners, or miners at least, that are already in the game for Kaspa. So I think it's a really interesting chain and a really interesting subject to explore.
Yeah, I would agree with you that there are a lot of Bitcoiners out there who have to have exposure to Kaspa in some sense, but have to be quiet about it or feel pressured to be quiet about it, including some big names potentially. But to answer your question, as I'm sure you know, you may have seen that ZK EVM's coming to Kaspa and is already on testnet. So once that happens, you have apps like Kaspa.com, Zealous Swap, building, lending, swapping, all the typical stuff you're used to seeing.
If you guys need a stable coin, guess who? You need a stable coin, we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, stable coins on Kaspa are the absolute best network for many different reasons. And then I also can see Curve Finance, Uniswap, they're able to port over to a different EVM, or not a different EVM. They're able to port over to a different L1 in less than a day. So as soon as obviously the KIP opcodes for ZK are coming out, are already on Kaspa with this latest Rust upgrade, which is being bumped up to 10 BPS in 2 weeks. So
I think you're wrong.
Everything's there. Everything's.
There's no ZK opcodes.
Is that incorrect?
It's not
Okay,
correct. No.
The
The ZK opcodes are not coming. They are coming, but not soon. They're like maybe in a year or so. Don't catch me on my words. There's still a lot of work to be done before ZK opcodes are coming to Kaspa.
I originally thought it was in line with Dagnite, but recently I think the community's confused on that.
The Dagnite is another thing that is coming, but is coming in some time, but they're not really related. They might come together if, coincidentally they are finished at the same time, but they are not tied in any way.
And my personal assessment is that implementing Dagnite would require a lot more work than ZK opcodes. That's my guess. You can't know in advance, but that's what I'm assessing.
Yeah, okay. I think the opcodes are required for true based zero knowledge proofs, but there's ways potentially to do EVM on Kaspa without the based aspect. Maybe Kaspador, maybe you're better to speak on that than I am.
Well, Mike also wrote the EP47, I think, or helped write it anyway. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that helps have a seamless EVM compatibility with Kaspa's layer 1.
So
that's what I was referring to.
Basically, there's Crescendo should have enabled even before EP15 most prerequisites. EP15 changes a few fine details that were required for some sorts of proofs to be possible. Otherwise, you would not be able to synchronize a new L2 node in a decentralized manner. because we prune data. I don't want to get into the technicalities. I don't think this is the correct stage. But anyway, keep 15 was just a fine detail. The main thing was enabling payloads, which let us place arbitrary data on top of any Kaspa transaction, which enables us to use Kaspa as the sequencer and then run any code we wish on our EVM or whatever virtual machine anybody decides to implement on top of Kaspa.
Thank you, Mike. I think, Landy, the answer is it's all in the works.
Yeah, 100%. Pima, I want to get to you because I know obviously Sid's had to drop and possibly you may have to soon as well. But I'd love just to, if I can, get your thoughts on or how you found Bitcoin and what drew you to it, and also your thoughts on Kaspa as well.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, I'm Kaspa paired, I guess now. I mean, it's super interesting what Mike said right now that, okay, if, I mean, any VM, be it EVM or any other VM is, able to run on Kaspa, that is something interesting. I would love to see how it's possible. But yeah, I mean, my journey is kind of different, I guess. I used to be security researcher in 2018. Like 2017, 2018. But I got into Bitcoin in 2018 by submitting a report. Like I literally got Bitcoin, and that's how I started building, a couple of different paradigms, be it in the permission chain, like proof of stake, like early stage of Polygon, even proof of work stuff like Filecoin. I mean, Bitcoin is something, of course, close since the beginning. That's where I was exploring many stuff last year because, of course, ordinals and many things were growing great. So that's how I joined Bima for building out stablecoin out of it. So yeah, I mean that's my short and sweet journey. But in general, I mean, I guess if any kind of liquidity, as even Landy mentioned, can be bridged in form of BDC, maybe even Babylon compatibility, be it me. I'm not sure much about Casper community and its smart contract mechanisms, but if, like, say, and other non-EVM chains can even adopt Babylon-based, LSTs, LRTs, that can be possible, I believe, on Caspar directly as well, natively, using Bitcoin here, and even maybe, enabling more DeFi functionality for Caspar. So yeah, I'm bullish on Caspar as well.
Amazing. And so I know obviously what you do with Beamer and it's a lending protocol. You can lend your or borrow against. Sorry, you can borrow against your Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's what. But yeah, please go.
Sorry, I was just gonna. Is this something that would Beamer actually look at Casper as well for something similar to that?
Interesting. I mean, as of now, we are using only BDC as a collateral. But in case, let's say in Kaspa community, you guys bridge in any BDC liquidity, then probably we will be able to come and use the BDC liquidity as a collateral to, enable borrowing against it, providing lending protocol as well, which what we have. Plus, like couple of institution products where people can generate yields from the stablecoin. But there is lending protocol where Kaspa as a token can be utilized as well. So of course there are a couple of opportunities together we can explore.
I mean, that'd be fantastic. I know a lot of people that would probably use that facility. But Christian, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I have a quick question for our Bitcoiners here. I see kind of a chasm in the Bitcoin community between people who think, the Bitcoin's original code and structure should not ever be changed and should not ever be touched. And then I see other people who are trying to innovate. And then those original people say that they're trying to attack the network. And then there are actual things that are implemented and innovated on Bitcoin. And Kaspa very much has a, innovation ethos to it. So I'm curious to hear y'all's perspective on the chasm that Bitcoin faces between innovation and keeping things original.
Landy had his hand up first, if you, and then we'll go to Pima if that's okay.
Realistically, Bitcoiners aren't against innovation in that regard. I think that the conversation that you're probably referring to is surrounding OpCat or BIP 420. Like we accept BIPs a lot, right? So there's definitely been advancements to the network while trying to maintain the ethos and core of what it is without deviating away from what Bitcoin is, right? Block sizes being a big one and has been a big contentious issue for many years. The restricted block sizes and OpCat kind of came up again when the Ordinals protocol was introduced by Casey, and then started to get adopted by miners and node operators. So the biggest thing there is not that it's a resistance to innovation. It is that what comes first is security and immutability, right? And there are the maxis that want to stick very stringently to that. And then there is the other side that wants some more advancement like OpCat. And it's not that there is like a resistance to innovation. It is a protectionist kind of viewpoint of like we need to make sure that we have security and immutability on the network, and overloading nodes with data storage via the witness data for Ordinals protocol, and then loading the network, which turned out to be a big nothing burger, loading the network with the UTXO runes protocol. This stuff went through, right? And the OpCat is a big sticking point because of the potential unknowns if it's not handled in the right way, if it's reintroduced, right? So that's where the schism kind of is, but everybody's on the same side. It's just a really robust and fairly polarizing conversation, I think, at this point. And I fall on the side of like, what do we need it for? Like, we really want to, load up commands and open up that potential attack vector via OpCat to solve problems that are already solved. Like, it doesn't make too much sense to me, but there's other people who have really good points on the other side. And I don't think that I think that that's one of the reasons why you've seen a lot of Bitcoiners leave to do other things, to build out other networks, to facilitate the goals of what we want to achieve for Bitcoin in general, without having to risk the security and immutability aspects of it. So that's why you get Stacks Network and you get Babylon and you get layer 0 stuff and Bitcoin OS and all of this different stuff. So I think that is all just to serve the same end goal that we've had for Bitcoin since the beginning. And I've seen a lot over the years. I mean, I've been in since 2011. I got involved in mining from that point on, and like it's just been there's been some very contentious personalities, but I wouldn't mistake that for the actual underlying takes that people who have been here for a long time have, because we try to remain objective.
Yeah, we'll get Pim's opinion on this, but it was just a dialogue I saw yesterday between Paul Sword. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and Luke Dasher.
I bet it was fun.
Yeah, Luke Dasher, who's a core contributor to Bitcoin, and
Luke.
He's proposing BIP 300, which he claims allows Bitcoin to scale to 8 billion users with no code changes. I mean, who knows if that's true or not? But then the core contributor said this is an attack on Bitcoin. Basically, this is meant to be fought, not debated. So I just think it's interesting to watch all that.
Well, Luke is good for gathering mind share. Let's put it that way. Luke is very controversial and very stringent in his beliefs. But there's a lot of other people that have been around that have a different, do share some of the same ethos that he does, but not all of it. And it is it's a situation that is needed. I think that we need the Lukes and we need the other counterparts that are at the polar opposite ends of the spectrum.
It's healthy to have that.
Middle ground. Yeah.
Yep. And what's your take on it, Pim, if you're still here?
Pim's had to drop, unfortunately.
Okay.
But to carry on with that discussion, would Bitcoiners view Kaspa as another sort of? I know it's not a fork of Bitcoin, but would they view it as another sort of fork of Bitcoin?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there might be maybe a few. I don't think so. Look, I mean, the hardest core Bitcoiners get into mining in a heavy way, or support mining in a heavy way, and try to get decentralization of the network and keep a close eye on things. And look, they're going to have varying opinions on all of this. I don't think any Bitcoiner. So it used to be every new network that launched was going to be the new Bitcoin, and it was seen as a vampire attack on Bitcoin, right? Even I agree with that sentiment. I held that sentiment, but that's no longer the case. We don't live in the same kind of era where this next thing that launches is trying to be the next Bitcoin. But even things that might share the Bitcoin ethos, and trying to use Bitcoin as a model, aren't seen that way anymore. Now it's about what do these other networks offer to Bitcoin that is a symbiotic relationship, right? How can we help that network achieve as Bitcoiners, because there's a lot of Bitcoin capital that goes into other networks to help build. And what does that, will that help us achieve our goal and their goal? Can this be a symbiotic relationship that helps unlock the liquidity there while funding up what this is, and to meet the goal of unlocking that liquidity, whatever it looks like? And that's why you see a lot of Bitcoin centric projects branching out to other networks, whether it be Sui, Solana, EVM compatibility. And I'm sure that you have a portion of Bitcoiners that are capitalized in Kaspa as well. I know I am myself personally. So, I can only really speak for myself, but you'd have to kind of maybe do a survey or something.
I'm curious to hear from Shai and Mike if there's a potential possibility with base ZK rollups that a wrapped version of Bitcoin can be sent peer to peer on Kaspa, and Kaspa could almost act like a Lightning network for Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, that definitely is possible. Once you have smart contracts, you can wrap any asset, and like the same way you have wrapped Bitcoin on top of Ethereum, you can have the same smart contract to wrap Bitcoin on top of Kaspa. I actually have a question for the Bitcoiners, if I may. What will it take, if there's anything that is even possible, for the Bitcoin community to seriously consider implementing a block DAG inside Bitcoin? I mean, let's say for 20 years, Kaspa is running, it has no problems, it has proven it is secure. Why won't Bitcoin upgrade into a block DAG?
Well, it requires a hard fork.
Yeah, Bitcoin
It's a hard fork.
don't like a hard fork, do they?
Yeah.
So a hard fork is never happening in Bitcoin.
I can never say never, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I understand that Bitcoin wants everything to be super secure. I totally support and respect that. So my question is, can we be secure enough for Bitcoin to consider this?
I'm going to tell you that I don't see that happening for Bitcoin. Main reason why is you already have Kaspa, right? And if Kaspa is proven out, why would you hard fork? There's no reason to, when you can just wormhole, right? And that makes no economic sense to do it from a Bitcoin network standpoint either. It would make more sense to share a relationship with a chain like Kaspa, right? And just wormhole, bridge over, and do what you need to do there. And I suspect, there's so I'm very heavy into the Stacks ecosystem, mainly because of the proof of transfer mechanisms and how it works, how it's basically the most decentralized and closest layer to Bitcoin. And there's developers over in the Stacks ecosystem evaluating how they can utilize Kaspa and what that might look like, and bridging over and smart contracts and planning for the future. Like, there's a lot of eyes on Kaspa. And I think that to implement that to hard fork for Bitcoin, not going to happen, especially if Kaspa's proven out. You give it 10, 20 years and it's like rolling, there's no reason to fork. It's just, you go over and you utilize it. We're going to be in a what I call a Bitcoin singularity world anyway, where everything's going to route back to Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to route back to everything else. So it's just a matter of how long does it take to get there. And with institutional players in the game for Bitcoin, like the ETFs, with nation states like the United States, with a reserve and potential accumulation bill on the horizon, and plans to accumulate even outside of that, budget neutral, I don't see, I think that Bitcoin might just do smaller innovations here and there as needed, especially when it comes, the big focus is quantum computing and quantum resiliency. So that's the next big one. And that's what the big talks are inside of the Bitcoin communities at the moment.
So, Landy, I'm sure you're aware of some of the drawbacks to the Lightning Network, especially in regards to security and decentralization. My vision that I see is Kaspa will be Kaspa, Bitcoin will be Bitcoin, but hopefully Kaspa can serve as a better Lightning Network for Bitcoin, because ZK-based rollups, essentially it will inherit the Nakamoto-like security and decentralization of Kaspa to do a Lightning-like transfer of Bitcoin. That's kind of my ideal vision of the future.
I
If it's
think
possible.
I see hard fork a bit differently than y'all. The way I see it, any hard fork can happen at any time, and the question is just whether the community would be convinced. I mean, if you want to, you can right now fork the Kaspa code base and start a new network where the Genesis block has Bitcoin's current UTXO set, right? And then you have the Bitcoin over Kaspa. Call it, I don't know, Doug Bitcoin, and try to evangelize and convince people that this is the true Bitcoin, and see how many people you convince. So the question boils down to whether in 20 years, if Kaspa works well for 20 years and is highly adopted, if somebody does something like this, creates a copy of Kaspa's protocol, starting with Bitcoin's current UTXO set, and tells people, hey guys, from now on, this is Bitcoin, whether people will be convinced or not. And I don't see it happening in 20 years. I don't see it happening in 100 years, personally.
What if I tell everyone that I am Satoshi Nakamoto while doing that?
Doesn't
From
matter at
my
this point, brother.
personal
Hey,
experience,
that's already been tried before. That's already been tried before with Craig White. Craig White tried.
You want to be Mike Wright?
I'm Mike wrong.
Mike wrong. I wanted to kind of answer the Bitcoin Lightning Network stuff. Look, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of potential innovations coming to Lightning Network, and there is definitely opportunity for Kaspa to seize on that potential. I don't want to call it a weakness, but that potential opportunity, right? There is opportunity that lies there. And I've had conversations. So there's people in the Ordinals ecosystem, and there's a good friend of mine, I consider a really good friend, who's been mining Kaspa for a long time, and actually got me interested in mining Kaspa in a more earnest way a while back. And one of the big things that I've been monitoring is that potential, right? It is not something, there is enough room for how much liquidity there is in Bitcoin right now that is trapped, and how much more is going to be trapped. That means that there is a ton of room for different chains and different layers to sit on top or adjacent to Bitcoin, or, like I said, just chains that allow for bridging. there is enough liquidity there to have a real opportunity for many players involved, because we're just at the tip of the iceberg. There is in terms of Bitcoin development or development focused on Bitcoin and unlocking its liquidity, we're in such early days that it was just Bitcoin Startup Labs had a couple of cohorts come through with very innovative projects and stuff like that on layer 1s and layer 2s and Bitcoin adjacent layers. And those are barely coming to fruition even now. I mean, you even have Grailbridge over on Cardano, right? And you have Charles Hoskinson talking about how he wants to build with a focus on Bitcoin. He wants to become basically, I don't know if it's exactly what he said, but he kind of wants it to be like a layer 2 for Bitcoin, and offer all of that.
Sorry.
And the door is open.
Sorry.
Now I've talked to him directly. So, and I got to ask him a bunch of questions. So it was very fortunate that he answered my questions, and he answered them well. He understands the Bitcoiner ethos. And I think that Kaspa, and I think the people developing Kaspa and the people involved in the network and the people who buy Kaspa and hold Kaspa understand where Bitcoiners are coming from even better than anyone else, right? Because of just the way that the network was built, the way that it was advertised, the way that the pitch has been, and the builders that are involved in it. So I think that there's a very good symbiotic relationship there, and a really good symbiotic relationship between people building on Kaspa and other builders focused on unlocking Bitcoin, like Stacks, Babylon, so on and so forth.
I'm curious how Casper could benefit Stacks and why they are looking into it.
Well, because, Stacks is building and growing and going and reaching out to other ecosystems. For instance, there's a decentralized peg. The truly first decentralized Bitcoin wrapper is on Stacks, and that's going to be going to other networks eventually, and that's already been announced. I think Aptos and Solana are the first ones. Guarantee there's more behind the scenes. So it's getting that decentralized peg out there, because it solves a problem that we've had with wrapped products, and wrapped Bitcoin for a very long time, and that's single points of failure.
Well, it could act as a lightning channel if you have a liquidity pool where you swap your Bitcoin on the block DAG and sub-second swap, and then you send it to another wallet, sub-second swap back to Bitcoin, everything done at 10 blocks per second, and the full transaction might take 2 seconds. And it's inheriting through the base ZK, the security and the decentralization of Nakamoto consensus. It almost is like, in my mind, the perfect lightning network for Bitcoin.
But there's something I don't understand here. I might just be stupid, but on one hand, like when you have the Lightning Network, you have this punishment protocol that punishes people who are lying on Bitcoin. So this is why you can kind of trust the Lightning Network in some sense, because you know that if someone is trying to cheat you, then sooner or later, it might take, I think, up to a week, but sooner or later, they're going to get theirs. If you use Kaspa to wrap Bitcoin and then transmit wrapped Bitcoin around, then if you don't trust the security of Kaspa on its own, and you only trust Bitcoin, and that's why you want to use Kaspa over Bitcoin, then you don't get any security guarantees from Bitcoin until there is a settlement, so you'd have to wait as long anyway. And if you do believe in the underlying security of Kaspa and think that it's sufficient, then why not just use Kaspa directly? I don't understand what you gain from this.
Well, there's a few different routes you could take, right? You do have a good point, but let's say hypothetically in the future, Stacks Bitcoin comes over to Kaspa, right? And there's liquidity pools and stuff like that. The settlement between those two layers would be near instant, right? And then you're just waiting for the decentralized signers on stacks to settle on layer 1. You don't even have to go from Kaspa to layer 1 and wait 10 minutes. You can settle on a group of decentralized signers and validators on stacks, and you can still then enable all of the Lightning-esque types of tasks that you might want to do, micropayments, so on and so forth. Now, could you do that directly through stacks? Sure, you could. Not quite as fast at this point as Kaspa. I think they're 1 to 5 second block times. And in this case, I just see a future where we're going to be sharing a lot of networks, cross network compatibility, and chain abstraction is going to be kind of the future anyway in layer 4. So so-called layer 4, kind of this layer that sits on top and is transparent to the, it's literally everything that's happening underneath. The inner workings of what's going on underneath don't matter. It's a matter of what is it really built on at the end of the day. I think that there's many different ways to approach that particular kind of Lightning-esque purpose across networks, and make utilization of the security and immutability of your own network and other networks in a way that gets back to Bitcoin for final settlement either way, without having to, really, the Lightning Network has challenges, and those challenges are the liquidity, right? And there's a bit of centralization risk there. It is not, it's not easy to set up for like a layman. There is, opening a channel is not the easiest thing, right? There are tools and apps and so on and so forth that make it a little bit more attractive and easier to use, but they're trying to work on that for themselves. There's been some investment into it, and we'll see where that goes, but it's kind of not what it used to be in terms of hype. Now there's a lot of other things that have kind of taken and stolen that spotlight.
I think what Shai was trying to say is like, why not just use Kaspa for peer-to-peer payments? And I think my answer to him would be we need to bridge the Bitcoin maxis over to seeing what Kaspa's capable of in the form of smart contracts or like a Lightning-like solution for Bitcoin. And then they say, oh, okay, well, we could use Kaspa as well. It's not a question of whether Kaspa can be used now. It's getting their heads around it and getting
maybe my problem. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm done.
So I think maybe my problem is that I think about this like a cryptographer and not like a user. But the way I see it, if you don't believe that Kaspa provides immutability, then you wouldn't trust anything that you do over Kaspa. And if you do believe that it provides immutability, then why do you even need Bitcoin?
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And because it's decentralization, right? Especially if you're dealing with Bitcoiners, because it's not just about security and immutability, it's about the decentralization aspect. Because somewhere along the line, you narrow the tunnel, right, to where is the single points of failure. And if there's less single points of failure, you get that more decentralized aspect. That is how you attract them. You got to bring the full package, right? That's how you attract their liquidity.
Okay. I also wanted to make another point about Lightning. I think it's a bit of an understatement to say that there is a risk of centralization. I think there is centralization. There are some researchers that map the topology of the Lightning Network, and we see there is a convergence towards supernodes. And when people tell me that Lightning is decentralized, and I ask them in what sense, they tell me anyone can start a node, right? And then I tell them, okay, try to start a node and tell me how long it takes you to find peers. Good luck. Why would anyone want to be your peer? There is this inherent dynamic that incentivizes people to connect to the most well-connected peers, and we see there are measurements that show that you have this very, very small subset of Lightning nodes that essentially all transactions go through them. And I think even today there are risks of high Nakamoto coefficient and risks of censorship. So I think Lightning is a cool protocol. I'm not talking about Lightning as a protocol. I'm talking about Lightning network. I think it pretty much at this point, maybe it's harsh of me to say, but to me it seems like it kind of fails as a decentralized scaling solution because it shows very strong centralizing dynamics.
Oh yeah, that's been the main criticism of it, right? And to actually get a channel up and running and have liquidity, it is inherently a centralized channel. That's exactly what it is. So,
And
it's
but is that
yeah.
where Kaspa could actually benefit from, or not? Well, Bitcoin and Kaspa could benefit from each other as
Yeah.
Kaspa becoming a layer two. Because I know about, like, obviously what Shai's saying. If you don't trust the security on Kaspa as a Bitcoiner, why would you use it? But is that the sort of half a trade-off? So I know obviously Kaspa's not at the same hash rate as Bitcoin, nowhere near. So obviously security is actually stronger on Bitcoin. But as a layer two, would that be enough for Bitcoin users to use it?
No, it's all about decentralization. That's one of the reasons why Stacks got so popular, is because of the proof of transfer mechanism and the way that it works to facilitate decentralization. But you have decentralization of hash rate, and that is good enough, but it's about on-chain decentralization at that point. Because if you're bringing in any Bitcoin in any kind of a wrapper, right? If you're facilitating the wrapping of any kind of Bitcoin, it can be, your network can be secure and immutable and decentralized, but is the wrapper itself decentralized? That is the core component. And if you're not going to decentralize a wrapper, what are you facilitating to on a contract basis to move that Bitcoin? And how is the actual product end work, right? So this is really comes down to, if I'm a Bitcoiner and I want to move my Bitcoin using Kaspa, what are the potential risks? So I have to look at a risk matrix and be like, okay, well, the network is secure and it's decentralized and it's immutable. But that does not inherently mean that the protocols that I'm using on the network are, right? So it's all about the product that's built on top. And look, Bitcoiners believe in Kaspa and have adopted it on the mining side of things. I mean, that's why it's at 1,000 petahash right now. It's more than 1,000 petahash, right? So and that's going to grow. And as more mining competition in terms of equipment. Now, granted, it's all kind of utilizing the same, just different manufacturers right now. But as that continues to grow, which I believe it will, you already have Bitcoiners literally running Kaspa miners right next to Bitcoin ASICs, right? So this is already there. You've already got us, right? It's just about getting the rest of the people who have no idea what Kaspa is, that have been holding Bitcoin and using the network and putting Bitcoin into cold storage, that want to look for solutions to actually unlock the liquidity for Bitcoin. That's who the next target needs to be. And I've said this, in the Stacks community, that's one of the big things that I'm really heavily invested in Stacks. Like, I'm not going to be shy about it. I'm literally badged up with one of their projects, which is a stable coin. But it's a Bitcoin backed stable coin. And I like it because it's not like other stable coins that are backed by fiat trash. And that's when I evaluate things to other networks. Like, okay, if I want to use Kaspa to unlock the liquidity for my Bitcoin holdings, it's not about the network at this point. The network's actually been pretty well proven and will continue to prove itself over time, right? It's about what products are there and how secure are they? How have they been audited? If I'm going to go utilize any kind of a wrapper that's directly on Kaspa, is it a decentralized wrapper? Okay, what's the mechanism for decentralization of that wrapper? Or is it just all single point of failure, multi-sig wallet crap like we have everywhere else except for now Stacks, which is trying to innovate in that regard and trying to
How
grow
do
the
they do it?
decentralization? Well, they use a network.
How do they decentralize?
when you peg in for SBTC, it's not a multi-sig wallet. It is the network of signers that actually settle the stacks blocks that the Bitcoin is held in. So it's an actual net. It's decentralized by the network itself, right? And that's
Who are
where,
those signers? Can you maybe say a few words? Like, who can I become a signer, and what will that take from me?
yes, you can become a signer if you have. I think it's like what does it take now? I think it's like 100K worth of stacks. I think it's like 100,000 stacks or something. You can start securing the network. You can become a signer.
So it's a proof of stake kind of thing.
It's proof of transfer. So you have Bitcoin miners run the Stacks protocol, or Bitcoin nodes can run the Stacks protocol, either or. Bitcoin is bid into the Stacks network, and you have the Bitcoin. The mining process essentially works on Bitcoin being bid into the network via a Bitcoin node, and the highest bid will win the Stacks blocks and the Stacks rewards for those blocks. On the other side of that, you have Stacks stackers, or stacking, and they are the ones that are aggregating all of the transactions on the network, and they are awarded the mining reward essentially from the Bitcoin miners. They get Bitcoin, right? So stackers get Bitcoin, and Bitcoin miners get stacks as the reward. So in this sense, you have a bunch of Bitcoin nodes, not typically miners, but some will run Bitcoin or run stacks on the actual miner because they're already doing it. Doesn't reuse hash rate. It utilizes Bitcoin itself to be bid into the network. Stackers stack, they secure the other side, aggregate all the transactions, and give out the block rewards. And you have this this system that is very close to Bitcoin, survives on Bitcoin. All of those network of signers and validators are the ones who hold the Bitcoin peg for SBTC. So it's a decentralized network of signers, not a multi-sig wallet that's holding the wrapped product for Bitcoin. That's where you have wrapped Bitcoin that fails, and CBBTC that fails, and all these other ones that fail that check, which is why you don't see liquidity flooding in. And there's that's one of the reasons why, when it comes to DeFi for Bitcoin, it's been very difficult. And we had a bunch of companies last cycle that took advantage of Bitcoin liquidity and absolutely worked people over, talking about Celsius, BlockFi, so on and so forth, right? So the focus for the past 5 years, 4 to 5 years, and even before that occurred, was how do we bring DeFi to Bitcoin? And so a lot of people have been trying to solve that problem, because once you unlock that liquidity, then Bitcoiners can borrow against it. They're not paying taxes, and they're typically going to go into the ecosystem for the protocol that they're unlocking the liquidity on. If it's Stacks, it's going to be in Stacks. If it's on Kaspa, it's going to be on Kaspa, right? We'll play in those ecosystems, utilize the lending and borrowing protocols, participate in the trading platforms and the dexes, perp dexes, regular, just regular dexes without leverage or perps, and then memes and NFTs and so on and so forth, right? That's where you get that Bitcoiner liquidity in, and then it can spread out from there.
But yeah, all that's currently being developed.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of Bitcoiners like myself who are excited about Kaspa. We are, and like even though as a guy who's very heavily invested in stacks, I utilize Arch and I'm involved in Arch and Babylon and all of the rest that you can just go down the list of, but I'm heavy into stacks and I'm heavy into Kaspa, and there's a very good reason why.
I would love to see that Stacks network integrate some sort of Lightning solution using L1 as the Kaspa L1 as the verification layer. That would be really cool to see.
There's nothing saying we can't, and there's some really smart devs over there that have been looking and paying attention. Trust me. There's some really brilliant devs over there that are paying very, very close attention to what's going on. And if you actually go to the Stacks site and you look at who's invested in Stacks and who's invested in Kaspa, you'll see a very clear correlation there.
Do you see it being a comfy place for Bitcoiners to do instant payments if they're told that Kaspa is Nakamoto consensus based? It's
I
almost like a
mean,
mini
yeah,
Bitcoin layer in terms of principles. It aligns with the principles that they're looking for
for
to be
sure.
the verification layer.
Look, a lot of
Would that be
Bitcoiners,
helpful?
yeah, a lot of Bitcoiners are looking that way. And look, institutions, like, okay, so say I'm a family office. So I come from the traditional finance world, right? Say I'm a family office and I have clients who have Bitcoin and they're looking to not sell any of that Bitcoin. So it's literally just sitting on their asset side of their balance sheet, but they can't use it, right? So I want to be able to unlock that liquidity. I'm going to look to the best solutions for unlocking that liquidity for them, right? Because my client wants to not have to pay taxes and not have to incur that cost, but actually be able to utilize their money. Because that's how the Elon Musks of the world become rich, right? It isn't because they're cashing out all of their stock; it's because they're taking loans against their assets, right? And that's the same thing that Bitcoiners do as well. And there are vectors for doing that in traditional markets, but they're very few and far between. There's a lot of contract law and a bunch of risk associated with it, especially with not having a lot of regulatory clarity and the crossover of regulatory clarity. So where would I go? I'd go DeFi. And if I'm going to look at DeFi, there's a few networks, me personally, that I'd be looking for. Right now, it's what are the pros and cons of the different layers that are adjacent to Bitcoin right now? Where's Kaspa at, and what is Stacks doing right now? Stacks is the only one that meets all of the criteria, even though there are other networks that also offer DeFi capabilities. You can go to CoreDAO and you can get DeFi capabilities, but that's more of a Bitcoin adjacent network in my mind, because it's literally just an op return that's securing the CoreDAO network itself, that's facilitating those actions via wrap products that aren't decentralized. So, we're kind of homeless until I can say to my client, say, okay, I have a decentralized, trustless, secure, immutable layer for you to do this task on to unlock that liquidity in your Bitcoin holdings, so that you can go buy property, or you can go buy your Ferrari, or whatever it is that you want to do. Don't buy depreciating assets, please. But that's kind of that's my stance on it. And you know what? That's just an opinion at the end of the day. I don't know. I only know what I know. And I'm always open to learning more, because that's what this game is about.
Well, to me, that's the ultimate way to attract Bitcoiners to having exposure to Kaspa is by quote unquote lending a hand as a verification layer to create a new type of Lightning network for Bitcoin.
If that is something that you guys are passionate about, you should start integrating and working with or reaching out to people in Stacks, because they have a very good lay of the land from being around since 18, right? 2018
Yeah.
was the inception. And they've been building this network methodically and quietly, and with a focus on that really, really, because you can do security and immutability and all the settlement stuff on Bitcoin as long as it's staying in Bitcoin, right? And if you're going to wrap any products that are going to be Bitcoin adjacent, right? Okay, we want you to transfer. You're essentially selling your Bitcoin for this wrapped version of your Bitcoin. So is it backed by Bitcoin? Yes. Are there other products that are backed by Bitcoin? Ostensibly, right? So now you have a decentralized Bitcoin peg that is backed by Bitcoin and purely Bitcoin, not any other trash like fiat trash. And now, okay, they're to that point that other networks have been trying to get to. So if you want to go and you want quiet builders that can unlock a lot for a network like Kaspa, present what it is that you're building that solves the problem, right? You want instant payments over there, guys, that will eventually route and settle on layer one, and it's pretty much instantaneous between these two layers. Let's see. The biggest roadblock is typically people coming over and trying to understand clarity and all of the audits that you would have to do between that and whatever network that you're working on, right? So bridging over is not very difficult. but it requires liquidity. So then you have a few different problems to solve. What is the use case? I want to build a better Lightning network, but I want to utilize, instead of, we don't have to wait for the 10-minute block times. We can utilize stacks and we can utilize a decentralized peg. But if we bridge, then we have a liquidity problem, right? Who's gonna provide the liquidity, or how can I solve that problem for bridging? And then what is the use case for this application? Am I solving a problem that's already been solved, or am I solving a problem that needs to be solved, right? And that's where I think builders just need to link up with more builders that are building around Bitcoin, and you're good to go, because Kaspa's not going anywhere at this point. I just got off the phone this morning before jumping on the Spaces events with a good friend of mine in one of I probably can't say which facility, but in a pretty major American mining facility that just got in more Kaspa miners. So they're just setting them up. Like, this is just part of their quarterly stuff that they're doing.
That's probably Mara again, isn't it?
Never know. Never know.
So good. I mean, if with stacks, so I'm just trying to get my head around it. So this may be a stupid question, but I don't mind asking stupid questions. With stacks, is that something that, like, say, for example, Casplex or Igra Labs could facilitate to use Kaspa as an L1, or would they be basically their own L2?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, it would end up being a bridge solution, and probably some sort of a DApp that bridges between the two, that would facilitate that. And it's about, where do you go to get funding for that, if you wanted to get funding, or who's willing to facilitate it and put the money up. And you could approach it from both angles, right? Like, who's got grant programs that are, angled towards doing this, and why, right? Because you'd have to investigate the why. Why would I want to use stacks and not just go directly to Bitcoin, right? And what are the pros and cons of doing so? And what is the monetary overhead of doing so? Because now you're adding more complexity to it if you're going from Kaspa to stacks, and then stacks to Bitcoin, which you don't have to worry about, because it'd just be a Kaspa to stacks or a stacks to Kaspa recursive relationship. So it's about, what does that entail, and what are the knowledge gaps between the two networks, and any kind of smart contract functionality. How much is it going to cost to audit, because you're going to have to likely get auditors that are specialized in Clarity and Rust and whatever else, right? So it's really about trying to balance that and seeing what it is. And typically, I mean, I don't know what the kind of grant programs are on Kaspa. I haven't really looked. I know that there was a recent hackathons and stuff that went on in stacks, but they're building in all various directions directly on stacks at the moment. But there are bridges starting to open up, right? So, and then what does that look like? Can you solve that problem by going to layer 1 and skipping all of it, right? That's the big thing. And that's what you have to evaluate as a builder. As an investor myself, not a builder. Don't mistake me for a builder. I'm not a builder. I'm just a dumb who looks at charts and invests in stuff. So if I'm going to go and I'm going to evaluate as an investor, what is the return, and what is the timetable at the end of the day? What problem does it solve? How much are you looking to raise? And what's the timetable for delivery, and then seeing some return on that investment, or starting to see returns on that investment. So those are like the big ones for myself.
Fair enough. I really appreciate it, man. Lavendi, have we had any questions from anyone else?
Questions? No, everyone seems to be enjoying and in agreement with everyone up here on the panel. There has been something that's come through from Aglavel real quick, tagging Crypto Landy, saying, if it is Mara, then tell them they've got 13 days left to update their notes.
I'll pass it along if it is them. We'll find out, I guess, huh?
I've heard whispers of another public mining
There are
company mining
others.
Kaspa.
Yes,
Yeah,
there are others that are, I would say, substantially
What-
larger.
What's confused there? What do you mean substantially larger? There's no one's larger than Marathon in the on public markets in the U.S.
Oh, I imagine you could look around and find some larger mining operations that are U.S. based than Mara.
Well, there's operations here. They may not be American companies. Unless Sailor's mining Kaspa, if that's what you're trying to tell us.
No. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
that'd be funny if he was. Maybe Project Orange is like, hey, we're gonna put OpCat on Bitcoin. We're gonna do ordinals, and they're all gonna bridge to Kaspa. Here we go. And then it becomes like the Kaspa Maxi. That'd be hilarious. Like, look at us. We're gonna sell some bonds for Kaspa. How do you like that? That'd be funny.
Hey, there's some wallets accumulating a lot of Kaspa right now. That there are
You are correct.
no small
it's in
chumps.
a really sweet buy zone, by the way.
Man, I feel like you know a bunch of things we don't know.
He
I look,
definitely
there are
does. Listen to him.
there's certain things that I do know, as I can tell you. For one, I have been accumulating a lot of Kaspa, in addition to mining it. Now, when it did get here's some fun stuff, because it seems like we got a lot of Kaspa people here. So let me go look at my chart real quick.
Just spill all the beans, man.
All right. So upon regaining 7.5 cents, it looks good, especially if it can close above the 8 cent region, 8.3 cent region. That would look good tentatively. If Bitcoin cooperates and doesn't nuke, then 10 cents might be back on the table. That's a huge weekly zone of interest, by the way, at 10 cents. And between 10 and 15 cents, it might be a slog. Above 15 cents, we're looking back to the highs again. The big area at right around 5 cents that it tagged was one of the biggest areas that I wanted to see retested, because we had already gotten tests of on the run up. We had a test back down to like 7.5 cents, and we didn't get our 5 cent test for price. And I was like, you know what? This is probably going to keep running because it's strong as hell. It did. It ran to our 20 cent region. And then it struggled at 18 cents after dumping off the 10 cents, and then dumped obviously down to that 5 cent for a retest. That 5 cent area is the area that I want to see hold as a macro support level. And on the weekly, it looks as though, man, this looks as though it wants to try to find a bottom here. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see 5 cent region retested like later on in the future. Just understand 10 cents is probably the most likely area of interest to the upside from here, provided Bitcoin doesn't decide to plumb the lows and lower. Because the weekly looks really juicy right now. And it's just got to kind of close here, and it's a long week still left to go. Above there, 15 cents is the main area. If it were to reaccumulate between, 10 and 15 cents, that would look really good to run the high sooner rather than later. But I'd like to see a longer form consolidation structure build out of this to allow me to get some more, because I would like to get some more. I feel like I'm underexposed, and I hold quite a bit. But right now, above 7.5 cents, especially above 8.3 cents even, looks good on the daily.
I don't know.
Just
I mean, we've had a
pray for
15-month
Bitcoin.
consolidation between 10 and 20 cents. So if 10 cents
Big
is
resistance.
reclaimed, and yeah, but if it's reclaimed, I don't see it just ranging for months at a time anymore, especially in a bull market if Bitcoin takes off to a new all-time high.
I don't disagree with you. It's just more of a matter of it finding a base for reaccumulation should it shoot back to the highs and higher, right? If it's going to come
Oh
back
yeah,
down, you want to see that area hold up.
the obvious base for a long, like after the blow off top 3-4 year bear market would be this 20 to 10 cent area, in my opinion.
I agree. It's just got to get through that resistance now at 10 cents. Those lows that it lost.
So basically what you're saying is there's Bitcoin maxis, both mining and private, who are closet Kaspa fans.
They ain't closet, but they're definitely mining it, and they're mining it at some bigger facilities. Let's put it that way. If you extrapolate out who is invested in the Kaspa network, You can find the miners. Obviously, we know Marathon is one of them, but there's some bigger miners in play, and some bigger U.S. entities in play as well. And look, you've got people like myself who have been around forever that are big fans of what Kaspa is doing, right? And support the network, right? So it is it's in my vested interest to see its success, right? And in terms of price action, I think that it's been very, very strong. It might have a little bit of accumulation to do. We'll find out. But yeah, if we flip 10 cents there, it's looking pretty good at 15-cent minimum there for a nice run. It really does depend on where Bitcoin goes, though. Just, understand Bitcoin is, while showing some strength, still subject to traditional market liquidity for now. We'll see in the future if it ever goes for the decoupling, the actual decoupling, but maybe someday.
So I feel like Jack Dorsey secretly likes Kaspa and potentially Saylor. They're not in a position where they could ever own that they like something else other than Bitcoin. Does that make sense? Or they would just get flogged by the entire community. But the way they talk about the game theory of everything makes it seem like they really like Kaspa.
Well, Dorsey is said kind things about Kaspa in the past. So, I mean,
Wait,
I don't.
What?
Dorsey's talked about Kaspa, but he's
in
building
private, not in public.
Yeah, yes. I'd have to go find it. People have asked him
I mean,
about it.
I see him talking about, if Bitcoin cannot be peer-to-peer cash as it was intended in the title of the white paper, then he says it's a failure as a project.
Well,
And then, I'm there all day commenting on all of his posts saying, look over here, but I don't think they could ever acknowledge it.
I think Dorsey's wrong, but and I think Russia and China have proven that a few times with their energy deals. But we'll see if Dorsey is right or not. Remember, Dorsey has also been a popular candidate for being Satoshi, even though that narrative kind of falls apart when you actually do any kind of measured analysis of it. But I mean, those two I don't really look to be the Bitcoin maxis. It's everyone that's been involved in Bitcoin for a very long time and all the new people coming in. And are we going to get Bitcoin maxi nation states? Is that what's next? And then I think game over for it ever going away at that point.
Well, I do think there's a high potential it's always going to be the king of collateral. Like I think the most likely scenario is Kaspa makes Ethereum irrelevant, and Kaspa is expressiveness, digital silver, peer-to-peer cash, and it sits beside Bitcoin as number 2. But I do think, especially from the many longtime Bitcoin holders, they value it as a first mover. They value it because of the way it was originated anonymously, and it is a form of digital gold now. So I don't ever see it going away as the number 1, but I see a world in which very easily Kaspa is the number 2. Yeah, I won't buy it. I will be 100% Kaspa. I'm just saying that Bitcoin's had a long history and is valued by many people for certain reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, I don't know when Kaspa would be number 2, but I with everything that's coming online with Crescendo, I can't see it being too long, to be honest with you. Well, relatively not too long anyway. But that would be incredible. I did want to sort of get some feedback from the other members on the panel. Like, what would you guys like to see a sort of Bitcoin Kaspa integration? I know, to be honest with you, I know a lot of us probably would, because I can only assume it would just benefit everyone. But certainly from the people like Shai or Dennis or Kaspador, Ashton, Shai, start with Shai. Would you like to see a sort of not collaboration, but certainly Kaspa being used by Bitcoiners?
I'd love anyone to use Kaspa. Do you mean people who like Bitcoin using Kaspa, or do you mean actual integration between the technologies and between the networks? Because in the
just
latter,
bridging, no integration between networks.
but you do mean bridging. You mean you don't just mean I don't know, Craig Wright using Kaspa. You mean
just bridging. Yeah, a sort of integration of such to Kaspa.
well, I mean, I wouldn't oppose it, but honestly, I don't really see the point. I mean, I understand it would be beneficial in terms of sharing liquidity and economically it would benefit, but on a usability level and a technological level, I don't see what it achieves. So I don't know. I'm kind of completely lukewarm about this idea. If people want to do it, they can go ahead and do it. But I don't know. I can't really take any position. I'm very, very indifferent to this entire line of thought.
Fair enough. Ashton, what about you?
I would personally love to see it, and I've been dreaming of this for really since I found Kaspa originally. The idea of the end game settlement layer seems to support this narrative quite well. And to Shai's point, from a technological standpoint, I think I agree with him. What does it really achieve? But from a social and community standpoint, it's a psychological stepping stone, right? So if we can get Bitcoiners in the Bitcoin community to see value in trying out the network, experiencing it with the assets they've already accumulated, they already know and love. It seems like a very beneficial psychological stepping stone towards more and more Kaspa adoption and more understanding of the problems that Kaspa solves in direct contrast to the problems that we still see existing in plain Bitcoin layer 1.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, Shai, have you ever liked Bitcoin, or has that ever interested you at all?
I like Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin very much. I never disliked Bitcoin. I had my problems with Bitcoin Core, with the way I don't like the politics. But as a technology, I always liked Bitcoin. Think it's a great idea. I think it could be improved. I think it was more of kind of like a proof of concept. I don't have any complaints for Bitcoin. What I do resent a bit is that people were too quick to throw their money on it, which caused ossification. Now, this ossification is not a matter of greed. It's a matter of being responsible. If you raise a network and you do it as a technological proof of concept, and then suddenly your network is worth billions of dollars, then you can't play around it with it anymore. Even if you really wanted to, that was your reason to do it. So my problem with Bitcoin is that it became ossified due to circumstances beyond its control, and I completely understand the ossification, because who would be comfortable playing around with a network that holds such great value in sense of, sheer monetary value? Bitcoin is very nice. Bitcoin has its benefits. Right now, I know, I'll give you even an example. If you go, you remember there was this quote controversy about Kaspa allegedly not being verifiable because there are no archival nodes. And then we explained how you can verify Kaspa back to the Genesis using only data that there is on regular full nodes that are pruned. And then part of the information we put there, just for added security, is that we placed a hash of the latest Bitcoin block when the network was restarted, because we could use it as a proof that it's like taking a picture with today's newspaper, you know? So it's kind of, you can use Bitcoin. The fact that Bitcoin is there and acts like this most secure global clock in the world and most secure timestamping service in the world, in itself, it's amazing. And most secure proof of publishing service in the world. In itself, it's amazing. And it could be useful for anyone for a lot of things. I don't think Bitcoin proved itself as a transactional layer. And I really dislike the store of value narrative. I don't find it compelling at all. It might be correct, it might not be correct. I'm not the one to judge. You should ask an economist. But it seems to me that it's like conceding to diversification to such extent that you say that even the money itself is ossified. Its purpose is just to be held in place. I don't really understand what it does at all in this sense. But this is not the fault of the technology. It's the fault of the economy, and it's the fault of the way it's being leveraged. And I think it's also a consequence of people pouring money into it way too soon and making it much too significant to play around with and further develop. So this is by no way Bitcoin's fault. It's a great idea. It's a historical achievement, and people who are still trying to work on it are not ossified because they are tunnel viewed or because they are closed-minded, but because this huge responsibility was imposed on them and they are trying to work around it. I can't hold any of that against Bitcoin. I think it's more of like sour consequences, sour circumstances that Bitcoin has to survive in than the mentality of Bitcoin itself or the ethos of Bitcoin itself. So I think that the problems I have with the way Bitcoin is conducting is just, I don't think of Bitcoin as the culprit, but as the victim.
I think that's such a really good point, actually, and one that's probably missed by a lot of people, because it's true. You get to a certain market cap, who wants to mess around with that? Like you said, you then take on a hell of a lot of responsibility, and you don't want to mess that up at all. But then the flip side of that is, like you said, there's no growth there. But I thought it's quite interesting. So I do agree with you. I don't believe Bitcoin has the foundations are fantastic, but it hasn't proved itself as a transactional layer. And you said you don't like the store of value narrative either. So is Bitcoin really to you just a stepping stone or a really good foundation because of what it managed to achieve, and then we can grow from that? And also my other question to you is, do you think Kaspa will get to a point where say there's too much responsibility, the market cap's too high, that nobody would want to touch Kaspa either in terms of upgrading it?
I don't think Kaspa has this risk. I don't think I think it's very unique to Bitcoin because when other project launched, they learned from their mistake. They didn't want to be backed into the same corner. So when other projects are launched, they are very straightforward with their intention to further develop, which is something that Bitcoin couldn't have known is necessary. But right now, people expect Kaspa to evolve and develop, and there are all sorts of planned changes that everyone knows would require a hard fork, like DeckKnight and like ZK opcodes and other things. So because people who are invested in Kaspa or holding it as retailers are aware of these things, then you can't really expect Kaspa to ossify itself just because of its market cap. I think there is a huge difference between going into an industry where you know what magnitudes of money are involved and you come with a mission statement, which is what happens today with all projects, and what happened to Bitcoin, which is a bunch of cypherpunks launched a network to see how well it's going to go, and then they wake up one morning and it's worth $1 trillion. It's not the same circumstances and it's not the same situation. So I don't think it's a risk for Kaspa. I think Bitcoin made a choice. They could have made other choices. I'm talking about Bitcoin as an entity, but you know exactly what I mean. The people who had the most traction in the community, they went with a specific direction of let's try to modify things as little as possible. Let's commit ourselves to making soft forks and keeping legacy and backward compatibility at all costs. And it became expected of them. I think I don't want to call it a mistake, because if I were in this position, I would probably made this exact same decision. But in hindsight, which is always 2020, I can say that maybe a different route would have been better for Bitcoin and for the industry as a whole.
Brilliant answer. Thanks for that, Shai. God Candler, you've got a question.
So I wanted to go contra to Shai, because he's, I can understand as a mathematician, so I'm studying pure mathematics. And I'm also doing very theoretical stuff. So always, theory, no practical use case. So I can really understand that Shai said, I don't care about the economics, but obviously money is a medium of exchange in
I just want to sharpen this. I care a lot about the economics. I'm just saying that I don't understand it enough to comment on it. It's not the same thing.
Okay. Because money is a medium of exchange, and it's used by social creatures, not necessarily rational creatures. It's used in society, and you really have to think about how it's used in society for it to be relevant. Even if the technology is great, if it's not used by a social being, a social creature, that's a problem, right? I just wanted to maybe we can discuss this, and maybe you can tell me your opinion on this. Thanks.
I think the crypto industry as a whole is in a really weird position, because you have people who do hardcore scientific fundamental work, which is not, it happens on the theoretical and technical level, not on the social and economical level. And you need to somehow mitigate it directly to retail. And an analogy I used a lot is like, imagine that you are a materials engineer, right? And you come up with a new type of metal. And you think this metal is great for producing cars. What you would do, you won't go like and make ads. Hey, people, use my metal for your cars, because it doesn't make sense, right? You would go to car manufacturers, you would talk with their scientists and their engineers and propose your stuff, and the conversation would be completely scientific, and then the car company would decide to use your metal, and then they would have this branding and marketing and all other stuff that would take this final product, which is a car, which happens to have the metal that you invented, and take care of the social side. And in crypto, we kind of have to make this take fundamental science and communicate it directly to retail, which is something that you don't have in any other industry. In other industries, you have you have corporates and you have industrials whose pretty much main function is to be a bridge between the science and the retail. So the way I see it, crypto as a notion, as a technology, is not really ripe for retail. So I concentrate on the scientific side, one, because that's what I know best. I don't have any expertise in the social sciences. It's not that I don't think it's an important aspect, it's just that I don't like to comment on stuff outside my expertise. I am leaving it to people who know it better than me. It's not that I'm neglecting this facet. But the way I see it, if the fundamentals, the scientific fundamentals are bad, then you couldn't spin them into something good by social means. Yeah, maybe you could, and people have throughout all history, unfortunately, marketed bad products as good products. But it's not lasting and it's not sustainable. And I think that even though we are in the situation where we have to appeal fundamental and stealth and not accessible technology directly to retail, we must put the science first because we're trying to build something everlasting here. So if your fundamentals are correct, then you're doomed no matter how well you garner the social aspect. So this is just my 2 cents here. The social aspect is very, very important. I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm just giving my point of view, and these points of view that are often kind of conflicting. Somehow you have to do them both together, and it's very, very hard to navigate. I think anyone who tried to sell a crypto product know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, just a quick one here. This is a very good point, Shai, because uh, a lot we saw, for example, one good example of what you're talking about is EOS, right? You had Larimer that was, kind of a very good researcher when it comes to systems, etc. And EOS was early on able to market very well to retail. And the more we advance in this environment, the more I see that actually there is much less when this environment was at a certain point about hardcore technology and the ability to see how you can deploy that hardcore technology to retail and kind of get traction. I think the narrative now is shifting because we have built so much stuff. I mean, we basically have built literally, I think, an alternative financial system where you can do so many things. Obviously, there are improvements, etc. But I think that from a pure tech kind of innovation standpoint, I think right now the narrative, and rightfully so, of capital allocators are not anymore interested in allocating to the best system out there. They're interested in allocating to the best use case that brings traction and that can operate on the right operating system, whatever blockchain underlying is. And I think the narrative is a little bit shifted, and you can see it. Who leads? I mean, in the 15th, 16th kind of era, you have a lot of round tables around cryptography, around all type of very technical topics, etc., in endless debates. And right now, what you see is a more a shift towards creators, towards whoever basically can onboard users to use the technology that we have built. Because the problem is that there is so much technology out there, but it's underused. It's underused by a massive amount. I mean, the underutilization of all the applications, of all the layers, of all the systems that we have, and we say, no, security is still hard to use. I don't think it is hard to use at all, to be frank with you. Look, the meme coiners that has been onboarded with absolutely no technical skills, with nothing, not even fundamental understanding of the market, we're still able to onboard people. So I think that the shift really that is happening, and I'm saying from capital out, obviously great technology projects will always find capital because that there's always a nerd out there able to basically allocate capital to certain things, to certain arcane things that could be good or bad from an application standpoint. But today the narrative in really capital allocation in, I think, in digital asset, because it's drying out and it's drying out pretty quickly. I think the next wave of capital allocation is really going to focus on how many users you have, how many stickiness of users you have, how do you acquire these users, and how can we basically evaluate exactly like a Web2 startup, right? So this is the kind of shift, and I kind of miss the days where I would jump on calls and I would learn very arcane technical stuff and because that tickled my intellect a little bit, etc. But we don't have this these days. We don't have that anymore. Most infrastructure projects that we have invested in, etc., have been losing money, and we've been hyped into them, etc. So from a capital allocation standpoint, I can tell you that the shift is really towards, okay, let's go back to basics because technology is out there. It's good enough. Now we just need, once we get to levels where we need to scale, we will then focus again on technology and on building a better version of whatever we have. But right now, the problem is that we're not finding, the users are not staying. There's a huge churn rate. It's expensive to acquire user in this space. And we have an infrastructure, but it's like a ghost city, right? So this is the issue here.
Yeah, so
Honestly.
the way I see it, I agree with everything you said, but I think this is a wheel that has to turn back if we want the crypto industry to remain sustainable. I think that in 2015, 2016, you saw a lot of roundtables about tech because people were optimistic about utilizing and getting a lot of adoption because of the problems that crypto attempts to solve. And what happened is essentially that they ran into infinite roadblocks and couldn't deliver a technology that people outside crypto really wanted to use. And pretty much all attempts to use specifically proof of work, but crypto in general, pretty much failed. I mean, and I think a lot of people gave up on it, and those who remain now are playing this onboarding game about who can squeeze the most money directly out of retail now that the industry, the global industry kind of gave up on crypto. And I don't think this is a sustainable situation. I think a part of, salvaging the crypto industry and making this technology a thing that is actually used after all of the years of attempts, part of it would be to get the industry, the global industry, back into crypto. And if the industry as a whole manages to do that, then we will see the roundtables come back because suddenly people would actually want to build new stuff with this crypto. They would want to use it as infrastructure for a lot of stuff that currently isn't on crypto. And I think that crypto is, at this point, I wouldn't even say that there is little adoption. Crypto is not adopted, really, in any meaningful capacity. And I think what we see that like onboarding and how many retailers you manage to draw to your network, all this kind of the token casino is kind of like a symptom of that. It's stagnation, and if we don't bring back innovation to the scale that it was in 2015, 2016, then the industry is just going to die. That's the way I see it. And this is why I always tell that I kind of gave up on crypto and then Kaspa brought me back because I know at least on a technological level, it solves holy grail problems that were true obstructions to adoption. Now, there is a social factor here, obviously, and people are jaded and people are fed up with hearing about crypto, and people like everywhere outside of crypto, when I say that they do stuff related to crypto, a lot of people would respond with they're sick of hearing about the day that crypto would be useful for anything. And there is this going joke that the biggest open problem of crypto is what do you even need it for? So if we don't take the wheel back to true innovation and to drawing people into rebuilding existing global infrastructures on crypto, and we keep seeing this like a casino competition and who can draw in most people to their casino, then inside this small bubble, there might be winners and there might be losers, but the industry as a whole, as you say, is just gonna keep draining until nothing will be left. So I don't think we should be playing into this, even though maybe in the short term, because capital allocation is important to further innovation. But I think the big picture here is how to turn back this wheel and reinstate crypto as a promising technology and a promising avenue of innovation in the eyes of people outside our industry.
And I think because you actually said this before as well, Shai, and this opened my eyes up a lot to crypto in general, because obviously I'm retail, and that is exactly why I got into crypto, was because coin go up. That was the sole purpose of me getting into crypto in the beginning. Coin go up, and then it actually made me right. So why is coin going up? Why is this technology good? Why? And it actually made me dive deeper into crypto, and I find it fascinating, because it's not my. This certainly isn't. I stay in my lane, and this isn't my lane. But I genuinely enjoy it, and I genuinely enjoy learning about things. To do with crypto, especially Kaspa. But you said it before, where crypto is sort of flipped on its head, where normally it's industry that pay for things to be built out because it benefits them, and then retail benefit from it afterwards. Whereas crypto's complete opposite way round. Retail is sort of helping to some degree create a need for crypto, and then actually it's the industry that are then looking in and going, actually we could use this as part of what we do. So it's sort of it sort of flipped it on its head of how things actually work in the world, which is interesting. But I totally agree with you. I'd love to see. Well, I personally believe, because of what Kaspa's been able to achieve and what it will achieve, especially with sort of MEV resistance and getting oracles as accurate as possible. Like, they're huge problems in the crypto space that Kaspa could potentially solve. And again, that's a massive benefit to industry in as a whole. And then it gets to the point where, well, why wouldn't industry use it? And then that's where I think the true adoption comes, and it becomes less like a casino. And I genuinely, I think that's what will happen. But stuff takes time as well. That's the other thing. God Candler, I can see you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, I think there were some really good points, but I believe that Kaspa, with the crescendo upgrade and the MEV resistance, so I mean, Ethereum has a lot of MEV bots, and it's a huge problem, and Kaspa solves this and has 10 BPS, so that's like 3,600 transactions per second. That's already like a lot. That's extremely fast, and it's basically like your grandma is driving a Ferrari. So I think we need more of the social kind of adoption. I think what Shai said is absolutely correct. We have to innovate, and we have to really have a really good block duck technology. Yeah, so the architecture of the cryptocurrency has to be rock solid, and it is. I mean, Kaspa is rock solid. I read the mathematical proof. I read the white papers, and they're very, very difficult. So I don't think anybody but mathematicians
Sorry.
can actually read those, especially not retail. Probably nobody can read it. But I really believe innovation is key, but there's also the social aspect to money, to currency, and the economy, that is from one person that's willing to trade to another person that's willing to trade. And the whole reason Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin was in 2009, that the banks failed, and the government just printed money, infinite amount of money, and a lot of people got really screwed, and because their currency in their bank account was devaluated, and that's a huge social and economic impact on people's lives. And if Kaspa can become a money where this problem doesn't exist, that's already huge. That's huge. But people have to have Kaspa on their wallet and be able to go to the supermarket and pay in Kaspa, or go to Apple and buy a laptop in Kaspa, or go to Amazon and buy stuff on Amazon with Kaspa. Otherwise, it's a Ferrari, and we have the crescendo, we have the 500 horsepower, but if nobody uses if there's no racetrack, if there's no driver, it's truly a waste. It's truly a shame. So, yeah.
I mean, that is a fair point, but on the other side of things, like the general public don't even know, like they just tap a card. They don't know the service behind it, like Visa or Swift, but like they don't know how actually it works. They just know that they tap a card and then payment's done. So what's to say that industry doesn't adopt Kaspa as a payment rail, just as a payment rail? So people wouldn't even, to some degree, realize they're using Kaspa. They're still using fiat, but they're using that as a payment rail. I mean, I personally, and I do totally agree with you, there is a big social aspect to it. The reason I'm in Kaspa and the reason I was in Bitcoin is because, exactly like you said, they just inflate the money. Your savings are getting dwindled, just leaving it in a savings account, and that's what they teach you to do: save your money. It's just ridiculous. So that's why I actually got into something like Bitcoin and Kaspa, is because I wanted to become my own bank. And that's a social aspect, definitely. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So you mean USDT? So yeah, that's actually something, right? You mean USDT basically, just on the Kaspa network.
Oh yeah, I suppose
like
so,
Solana,
yeah.
USDT on Solana, USDT on Kaspa, basically. That's
yeah. So say if you're just a regular everyday person, crypto doesn't mean anything to you. But then on the same score, Visa means nothing to you either. You just know it's a name. You don't know how it actually works. All you know is you go to Domino's to get your pizza. You tap a card and then you get the pizza because the transaction's gone through. What's to say that in the future, the industry actually sets up Kaspa payment rails, but like I suppose they wouldn't, maybe not even. I suppose it would be in USDT, but like but to the everyday user, all they've done is tap a card, not even really realise they're using Kaspa's network, but it's paid for what it needs to. Or do you think that it needs to get to a point where everybody knows what Kaspa is and they're actually using, they're actually spending their cash? Is that what you sort of envisage?
So the true vision of Satoshi, I read a lot about him. Actually, I have a really good guess who it is. Because there's a research paper. I don't know, Shai, do you know Arxiv? Arxiv? The library where you No? Okay. It's a website where basically researchers agreed to upload. Archive.
Okay.
It's written
With a capital X.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Of course I know it.
Yeah.
You will find my papers there.
Yeah. So so all the students they always go on archive, and read some research papers or something, So sorry, what was my point again? What was your question?
About whether you see Kaspa or what you envisage Kaspa to actually be to the general public.
I think so the original so what I was saying was on archive there's a paper 1 in 100 billion genius who's Satoshi Nakamoto, and basically it's probably like 50 PDF or 50 side paper on who basically all the information that basically Satoshi ever left on the internet, from timestamps, geolocations, everything. And even, for example, he quoted in the Bitcoin white paper a special mathematics book, which is a very special edition. So it's a hard print cover edition. It's not a online available edition. And he it basically it blows his cover basically, because there's only a couple of copies that are available at some certain universities, and then you have to think about he's a programmer that can program such a difficult network in C++. So it's basically it's a good elimination. And what's clear in this paper is the mindset behind why he actually programmed Bitcoin. And he was an economist. Like he was really interested in economics and in money and the money supply. And he figured that the central banks are printing so much money, and it's always an inflation game. And basically, the government is spending a lot of money, and where does the money come from? They just they just print it in the central bank, right? So the government spends it, but it's financed by the central bank, which is normally in economics is not allowed. So you can't just as a government, you can't just spend money and then print it in the central bank, and basically your friends, your friends, and just lending each other infinite amount of money, because at the end of the day, there's maybe 100 million people or 500 million people that use your currency, and they have savings in the bank account. And once you print money, all those people are losing the value of their savings, and that's extremely unfair. It's just basically just stealing.
Yeah.
It's a legalized stealing basically, and it's
Yeah.
systematic stealing. And Satoshi wanted to have a system. I mean, before Bitcoin, it was not possible to actually transact from a peer-to-peer. So the peer-to-peer technology wasn't even there, right? I mean, there was maybe before that there was some others like I don't remember, like eCash. There was some coins before Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was actually the first who really had a nice solution to peer-to-peer transactions, and was actually set up in such a way that's trustworthy as a medium of exchange. And that was Satoshi's true vision, to give the power over the money supply, which is in the government's hands right now, back to a democratic system, and back to the people, right? And especially the people who are actually working, right? I mean, the government officials, they're not really working on, the government is not producing any goods and services. The free market, the people that get up in the morning and go to work, those are actually society. They're what hold up society. Governments and politicians don't actually do anything, right? I mean, mostly if they do something, it's very negative anyway. So it would have been better they didn't get up that morning. So that's that's the true vision. And I think Cass maybe is well advised to think about these economic and social and monetary aspects of a cryptocurrency, and especially the currency part. And I think therefore also people should use Kaspa directly, or maybe there should be maybe like the fold card. Yeah.
The what? Sorry, the food card.
No, the fold card from Bitcoin. The fold card.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
So there should be a fold card, basically on Kaspa. So you have your entire savings in Kaspa, and maybe 10% in stable coins, if the volatility is too much, yeah. And you should be able to go to the supermarket and use the financial system Kaspa network financial system directly with your credit card or with Apple Pay, like with the phone, right? And the supermarket shouldn't be receiving Kaspa for now, yeah, because they probably will not take any Kaspa. They will probably only take euros or dollars. But maybe there should be a real-time exchange of Kaspa into the currency, and then the supermarket can accept it. But for the user, it should be very easy to actually pay on the Kaspa network, and your saving, obviously. Kaspa is in an infancy stage where the volatility is extremely high, so it's not advised to put 100% of your savings in Kaspa right now, because it can go to 5 cents, right, from 20. But at some point when the volatility drops, right, if the volatility drops to maybe like 20 or 30 or 10%, yeah, or we have stable coins or something on Kaspa, then you should be able to go to the supermarket. That's the ultimate goal. Because once you go to the supermarket and you tell people, well, you can basically tell the government to fuck off, and basically and all the financial systems, all the banks, all the middlemen to basically fuck off, and you can go to the supermarket and basically in today's world, if you only use the euro or the dollar, and like you go to the supermarket, if you don't have euro or dollar, you starve to death. I mean, that's you don't have a choice, right? But now with Kaspa and Bitcoin, you start to have a choice, and the choice is extremely powerful. And Satoshi was anonymous exactly for that reason, because it's an extremely powerful choice for people to have the control over their financials and the money supply, right? I think that this aspect is very, very important. What do you guys think?
I mean, me personally, I'd love to see that sort of system in place. I think it's going to be a long while, and it's going to be a long time coming, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's too far out of reach of being a possibility. But that's what I would love to see. I don't know how it's going to look, to be honest with you. There's going to be you can have multiple different ways of being able to pay. I mean, to be honest with you, even if you look now, with Tangent, with what they're teaming up with Visa, I mean, things like that are just more and more adoption, bit by bit. People can start paying with their crypto with a tap of a card, and well, even crypto.com. I definitely think it's coming. I think it is an inevitability. It's just what it looks like in the future. It'd be certainly interesting to see. But I really appreciate the question, man. I'm just worried we're pushing on for time a bit now. And there is just one more thing I definitely wanted to ask Shai, because I was speaking to some Bitcoiners in another space, and there was one guy, Gorav, his name was. He was actually really far more intelligent than I am. But he really liked the look of Kaspa, but he was asking about quantum resilience. Shai, and I know Shai, this is right up your alley. Is there anything in the pipeline for Kaspa in terms of quantum resilience?
It is quantum resistant currently. SHA 256 is quantum resistant. It's
Yeah. Let's hang on this. Hash functions in general are quantum resistant, but that's not the problem here. The problem here is the signatures, right? Your public keys are exposed, and in theory, a guy with a quantum computer could compute the secret key from the public key using Shor's algorithm and Lipton-Bonnet algorithm. So this is the problem, essentially. Quantum computers can solve a problem that is called solving the discrete logarithm in the SECP elliptic group. Don't mind the details. And it essentially completely breaks Bitcoin or Kaspa or anything that uses elliptic curve cryptography, because the public key can be inverted back to the secret key, like the function that takes a secret key to the public key. You classically, we believe you can't invert it, you can't compute it backwards, and quantumly we know that you can. So the issue is to replace the way we do signatures with something that is resilient to quantum attacks. And there are post-quantum signature schemes around. There is the NIST, something, I don't remember what NIST stands for, but it's like the greatest source of cryptographic standards in the world. And they had a contest, and there are a few post-quantum signature schemes that you maybe heard about: Falcon, Crystal's Dilithium, and some other schemes. But there are many problems with this. First, because what are you going to do with all the counts? Say you want to quantum proof Bitcoin, and now you add post-quantum signatures, and you say, all right, everybody, move your money from a pre-quantum address to a post-quantum address. What about people who lost their key? So you're just gonna let any quantum corporation steal them? So what about all of these old P2PS huge wallets from 2011, 2010? Are you just going to let the first guy with a large enough quantum computer steal them? What are you going to do about this? It's a huge problem. Another huge problem is that quantum signatures, either the signatures or the public keys, it doesn't matter. You can trade off between them, and I've seen some projects try to cheat this way, but it doesn't really work. But if you look at the public key and the signature together, they are kind of huge, like literally 400, 500 times larger than an ECDSA signature, which is 33 bytes when it's compressed. To compare, in like Falcon, for the same level of security, each signature has to be like 1.5 kilobytes. So you see there is it's orders of magnitude in difference. Also, there is a lot of work to scrutinize as well as possible all of these new schemes, but we keep seeing all sorts of evidence that we don't fully understand them yet, and there could be attacks, there could be problems that we really don't know. They are being battle tested completely, constantly. Academics, crypto analysts, white hat hackers, and I guess more malicious sides to this equation also constantly try to break them and see what they can find. And there have been even a few scary examples. I can give you one story that I particularly like. And there is this chain called Algorand, right? And they say that they are quantum secure. And they say that because they use the signature scheme called Falcon. And Falcon is a very serious project, a very serious work. It went through a lot of testing and cryptanalysis cycles by NIST and by the NSA and other agencies. And then Algorand deployed it. And later, someone found a side channel attack. Now, a side channel attack is the term in cryptography we use to describe an attack that uses stuff that's not part of the security model where we prove the security. It's not like the security argument was wrong. It's that someone noticed that if you run it on an inappropriate hardware, specifically in hardware that doesn't allow what we call fixed time floating point computation. Essentially, cheap hardware, you can learn all sorts of stuff about what was computed just by measuring how long the computation took. Like different numbers and different magnitudes would take different times. And this leads to, apparently this leads to all sorts of exploits. If someone remembers the name Heartbleed, a huge exploit they found in the OpenSSL a while ago, it was also like this sort of timing attack, a bit different, but the same ilk. And so some researchers showed that if you run Falcon on hardware that isn't fixed time and floating point arithmetic, you can, just by listening to the device, measuring the electromagnetic pulses that go out of the device as you sign, they were able to crack secret keys easily. And so what does this mean? It means that if you want to have like a hardware wallet that's supposed to be secure when using Falcon, then you must have appropriate hardware, which is also more expensive, which is also a problem. It doesn't suit the way normal wallets work. And the thing is that I don't really remember the timeline, but if I remember correctly, the exploit was found about 2 years after Algorand already pushed the use of Falcon. Imagine if they were, luckily there weren't any, but imagine if they would also already support Algorand on hardware wallets. You would just have wallets that are ripe for the taking. An attack that is very, very feasible, cheap. It requires a lot of technological and technical acumen, but this is just a matter of time before this bridge is crossed and this process is automated. So I don't think we should rush into anything like this. I don't think we should be so keen to implement, especially like people are a bit freaking out because of all of this Google Willow stuff and the alleged Chinese huge quantum computer. They don't know how to read the benchmarks. These computers are tiny and they are very noisy and they are nowhere near anything you would need to attack ECDSA or RSA or anything. I think it makes more sense to wait for post-quantum signature technologies to mature and have more scrutiny. If it really concerns you, then you can reparameterize ECDSA to use a curve which has twice as many security bits, 4 times, 10 times, 100 times more, and use that to buy more time. But having said all of that, if we do make the transition to post-quantum signatures, I think Kaspa is very well suited for that because it can handle arbitrary loads of transactions, of data. I mean, the block round trip time doesn't really matter. It would widen the graph, I guess, but you could increase the block size to compensate for the fact that less transactions fit in a block, and you wouldn't be you wouldn't have the throughput that you have now with this ultra lean ECDSI signatures. But because Kaspa, because network latency is not a security bottleneck, you could essentially make the blocks larger. It would make the DAG somewhat wider. It's fine. And so I think when it would become the time to say, okay, we need to allow post-quantum signatures, then Kaspa is much better positioned to accommodate them than any other proof of work. And another thing, and now this is very esoteric, I only happen to know this because this is about half of my PhD. the resource question that started this entire project is, say there is already a quantum computer out there. We know there are quantum thieves that are looking to steal money. Is there a way to help procrastinators who didn't switch to a post-quantum address in time? Say you wake up in 20 years, you realize everybody has a quantum computer in their garage. Is there any way for you to transfer your Bitcoin that you haven't moved since 2024 to a post-quantum address, or are you screwed? No matter what you try to do, the quantum thief is going to be able to steal your money if they haven't already. And we came up with a solution for that, and you can look it up. It's called the lifted signatures, or helping quantum procrastinators. And this solution relies on one step in this solution is to commit the transaction you are making and wait for a bit and only then reveal it, because then the attacker couldn't front run you. And the amount of time you need to wait is not measured in real world time, but in how many confirmations you accumulated. It's like this 49% security. So because Kaspa has a very high block rate, then even though this thing would be slower, it could still happen in minutes, whereas in Bitcoin, we said that if you move to this mode of operation, then a transaction would have to take a week. So I think I'm not saying there is a complete solution, and not anywhere near it, but I think that the high block rates, high throughputs, and fast confirmation of Kaspa do give it some edge when it comes to allowing and activating post-quantum signatures on the network. On the other hand, another aspect of quantum attacks on proof of work that people don't really take into account is quantum mining. What happens to the network if there are miners that use quantum computers for quantum mining? Now, most people, when they hear this question, they're like, I don't even know what a quantum is. Some people have read about it a little bit in Wikipedia, and they say something like, yeah, okay, so I know that the best speed up you can get is quadratic, so it would take you a square root of the hashes. So if this guy needs 1,000,000 hashes, you need 10,000 hashes, but you use 1,000 hashes, but you use a quantum computer, which is probably like 1,000 times cheaper, or has just this tiny fraction of the global hash rate anyway, so we're safe. This is not correct. There are a lot of attacks of weird phenomena that we don't really understand that happen when people quantum mine, at least in theory, because it doesn't happen in practice yet. And specifically, there is a very interesting, very nice difficulty abuse attack. You can abuse the difficulty adjustment, because the thing is that if you reduce the difficulty by a factor of 10, you need to do only 100th of the work, because it goes like a square root, right? So you can use it, even though you're a small miner, to build a heavier sidechain, because the amount of work you have to do for the next block that is not directly proportional to how much you reduce the work. If you reduce it by the difficulty by a factor of 10, you need to work 100 times less, and you can leverage it in your favor. And I think Kaspa is actually more susceptible to this kind of attack just because it has this sliding difficulty window, and the difficulty is much more reactive in Bitcoin, where every difficulty increment requires you to wait an entire epoch of 2 weeks, and it's going to be actually a lot more than 2 weeks because you're doing it on a sidechain. That being said, the scale of computers that you need for actual quantum mining is like 6 or 7 orders of magnitude larger than for attacking ECDSA. So that kind of concern is the deep future, if it's even a concern at all. But that's about it. I think if I summarize it, if we talk about like the near future concerns of attacking signature schemes and breaking wallets, I think Kaspa is best positioned to implement post-quantum signatures compared to any other proof of work. But there are no plans, and there might be some devils in the details that would completely derail my assessment. But right now, I don't see any of it. I think Kaspa is best positioned.
I love learning from you, Shai, because it gives me so much ammo against people. Or not ammo, but it helps me explain in a probably really terrible, rudimentary way things like what you've just explained, like the quantum resilience side of things, and because I've been asked that a few times now in Bitcoin discussions on their spaces, because I know for a fact that's something they're really looking at, and it's exactly for the points you were saying about what about wallet, like Satoshi's wallet address, for example, that's never moved. Has he forgotten it? Is he gone? Is it like who's going to get first dibs on that? But the fact that, but I never knew that about Kaspa, that it's actually better positioned for quantum resilience when the time comes. But in your opinion, then, so we've got quite a lot of time ahead of us before we have to worry about that type of thing.
I don't think it's around the corner like people like to say, but this kind of stuff is always surprising. One day a technology sounds completely hypothetical, and the next day it's deprecated. You don't know what's going to happen. But I've been tightly following advances in the quantum computing field for the better part of a decade. I did a PhD in quantum computation, quantum cryptography, so I was constantly surrounded with top researchers of the field, and every time Google said we did that and Microsoft said we did that, I heard that by hearing people already explain to me why it's bullcrap. So I think much like the Bitcoin maxis, I became jaded. Okay, so they said it, so what? So it might come back and surprise me, I don't know. But I don't think it's an immediate concern right now. I think there are much more pressing issues on the table. And I think the best thing for the cryptocurrency industry to do right now is to wait for the cryptography industry to mature, the post-quantum cryptography industry to mature and be more ready for adoption, which is happening.
But also maybe it's for people that don't understand all this quantum computing, is maybe important to know that Shor's algorithm or Grover's algorithm, you actually need approximately 1 million logical qubits. And
no, you do not. Definitely do not.
How many logical?
For breaking ECDSA on SECP, you need about 2,400 logical qubits. But if you want, let me just explain it. The qubits that the physical qubits, like the qubits on the array on the chip, what we call physical qubits, they are noisy. They are imperfect, and we have a technology
I'm not sure if we've lost Shai.
Yeah, well, I think we lost Shai.
Gutting. He was just about to explain something really good.
But I know what he was trying to say. So basically, so a logical qubit doesn't equal a physical qubit. So you can build physical qubits.
Yeah, we have this field of research called fault tolerance, quantum fault tolerance, which is essentially the question of how we can turn a lot of dirty physical qubits to fewer perfect logical qubits. It's kind of like, classically you do it all the time, the information that you send over the internet, it has CRC and redundancy and all of this kind of stuff. So if a few of the bits get flipped, then you can still recover the original message. So you need to send 10,000 bits to send 1,000 bits in a fault-tolerant way, so it's about the same thing. And in the current noise thresholds, you would need about 10 million qubits to break ECDSA, and to run Grover, it's completely off the charts, and completely like huge numbers.
Awesome. I hope that answered that question anyway. But I think, to be honest with you, I think we're, Shai, I know for you it's extremely late now.
It's 40 past midnight.
Oh, blimey. All right. I honestly really appreciate your time coming here and speaking to us. God Candler, you've got one more question, if you can make it quick, because
So,
we need to
just to say, so a physical qubit, I don't know if Shai knows how much in dollar terms that costs actually, but it's a lot. I think to actually just build one physical qubit is so expensive. Basically, no private entity can ever build a quantum computer. At least not that that can run Shor's algorithm or Grover or whatever.
It depends on what, like, there is always a trade-off. There are technologies where the gates are cheap and the qubits are expensive, and the other way around. Like, the most perfect qubit in the world is a photon, and you can get them for free. Actually, they're anywhere. You can't escape them. But doing like the gate computations on photons and having them stabilized and coherent is very complicated. On the other hand, you have perfect qubits like in diamonds with certain sorts of imperfections, very cheap qubits, which are again very expensive to manipulate. But there are other examples like ion trap qubits or topological phase qubits, the Majorana stuff. They are very expensive to build, but much easier to manipulate. So it's this kind of trade-off.
Yeah, but IBM and so the way IBM and Google and Microsoft are building quantum computers, I mean, it's taking billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, because they take the Majorana approach. There are other companies like Kedma with a Q that go for photonic quantum computation, and there it's the other way around. The photons are extremely cheap. They are virtually light. They are literally light, but manipulating them coherently and accurately is very expensive.
Yeah, but it doesn't make an attack.
I'm pretty sure with the amount of ads that Google are putting on YouTube, they can afford to build such things.
Yeah, Google can.
Yeah, but nobody in the garage or something. That's a bit too difficult.
Amazing. So, okay, I think it's a good time to sort of wrap this space up. I just really want to give a massive shout out to everyone who's been on the panel, asked questions, but answering questions as well. I'm sorry we didn't get round to everyone as much as I'd wanted to, but I think the dialogue was really good here, and I think everyone learned a lot. And actually, I was really impressed with how well the Bitcoiners were with things. A lot of them actually loved Kaspa. So it actually worked out really well. I was half expecting quite a lot of friction, but we didn't even have that.
Yeah, I'm leaving this altercation with unsatiated bloodlust. I'm gonna go take it out on my PlayStation or something.
I'll get some angry Bitcoiners in next time for you, Shai. But honestly, really appreciate all of your time. And again, massive thank you to the audience as well. You guys have been fantastic. We've had a massive amount of people listening, to be honest with you. Well, to be honest with you, I knew we would, but it's been really good space. I've really enjoyed it. Lavendi, over to you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and likewise, it's been a phenomenal space, man. Appreciate every single one of our guests that came through tonight. It's been an education, to say the least. I'm definitely going to listen back because there's some things I didn't quite understand. So I want to have a tab open with AI to explain a few things for me while I listen back. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. I've been getting a lot of messages in the background, in DMs, in the group chats, in the replies of the space, with a lot of love for you guys. So I just want to resonate that from our listeners. And while I'm on that, thank you to each and every one of our listeners for joining. Without you, we wouldn't be here. So I'm glad that you guys enjoyed yourselves and learned today, and resonated well with our guests up on stage. So it's a good night from me, and we'll see you all next week. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good night.
Good night, man. Have a good sleep, and you're welcome back
Thank you.
anytime, honestly.
Bye-bye.
Sure.
Thanks.